Good morning and good afternoon to you on the East Coast. My name is Taylor Fulton, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the last Allen Press webinar of the year, Lead Generation Tactics to Increase Society Memberships. Before we get started today, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping details related to our webinar. First off, we will be answering all questions at the end of the webinar. If you do have a question, just click on the questions box on the main menu sidebar and type in your message. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the questions feature to contact us and we'll do our best to assist you. Finally, if you are having trouble hearing, please call in and listen to the webinar over the conference line. The toll-free telephone number and participation passcode are listed in the audio section of the main menu. Just click on the phone call radio button and the credentials should appear on your screen. Today, I will be joined by my colleague, Caitlin Ziegler, in what hopes to be a lively discussion about association marketing and specifically lead generation. Caitlin joined the Allen Press team in April of 2016 as a marketing communications specialist. In her role, she is tasked with developing and implementing marketing tactics both for journals and societies, and includes coordinating email campaigns, social media, digital marketing tactics, as well as membership and subscription renewal campaigns. Caitlin received a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing, Business Administration, and Management from Bethany College in Lindsborg, Kansas, and in her spare time enjoys hiking, coloring books, sushi, and spending time with family. And a little bit about myself. I joined the Allen Press team in 2011 and have worked in a number of areas, including both journal and society marketing, as well as publishing management. As Senior Manager of Marketing Services, I'm tasked with developing marketing plans, strategies, and tactics for Allen Press customers and helping organizations grow and reach their strategic goals. I'm a graduate of the University of Kansas and received a Bachelor of Science in Marketing with a concentration in entrepreneurship. Outside of the office, I enjoy running, traveling, and listening to podcasts on my 45-minute commute to work. So now that you know a little bit about us, let's get started with lead generation tactics to increase society memberships.
Great, thanks Taylor. To start off our discussion today, let's talk about what lead generation is at its basic level. The HubSpot definition is: lead generation is the process of attracting and converting strangers and prospects into someone who has indicated interest in your organization's product or service. But the question is, how do you actually do that? There are a lot of ways, but today we're just going to talk about 5. Content marketing. That would be blogs, email marketing, or newsletters, meetings, exhibits, and conferences, direct mail, trials, discounts, and long-form content, and trading that for a reader's contact information, and finally, webinars. Now, if you're wondering how you use these to generate leads and then members, Taylor's going to walk you through that process.
Okay, so many of you have probably seen something like this, a sales and marketing funnel. So at the top of the funnel, we have our prospect or visitor who is either new to your organization or new to your brand. We have lead, and a lead is where somebody that is a prospect or a visitor is where you get their contact information. So you have their name, their email, maybe some light demographics, and then they're in your marketing system as a potential lead or member to your organization. Below that, we have a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead, which are just further kind of lead categories throughout the process, and really measures, is this individual a good fit for your organization and what the likelihood is that they'll become a member. And then finally at the bottom we have opportunity, where they're probably at the very cusp of becoming a member, and then finally they are a member. And if you look at it from whose responsibility is to push through these individuals through the sales and marketing funnel, at the top it's marketing's job. Whether it's blogging, whether it's attending conferences and meetings, it's their jobs to get eyeballs on your association or society. Looking at the middle of the funnel, there's a shared responsibility. So it's marketing's job to qualify these leads, but it's also sales' responsibility to make sure that they're worthwhile, that you're not wasting your time recruiting members that aren't a good fit for your organization. And finally, at the bottom, opportunity and member are sales' responsibility. So I know what many of you are thinking. Well, we're a nonprofit organization. We maybe have a small staff, or we're completely volunteer-based. We don't have a sales team to go out and recruit new members. And that's something I hear a lot. But what I would recommend is setting up a new business committee, or maybe it's just your membership committee, and having them take that sales lead and reaching out to members that fit this lead generation category. So we're going to start off today by talking about content marketing, which is a very popular both association and organizational marketing tactic, no matter what size you are. And it's probably fair to say that almost every business, association, or organization has a blog of some type. However, when I'm going around the internet and I'm looking for best cases or best practices for what a blog really looks like, I consistently find that not many companies or organizations do a very good job, and that they're pushing out content, but they're not using it to drive leads to their organization. So why start a blog? First of all, blogs drive traffic to your website. They also increase brand visibility, and probably most importantly, they position your association as a subject matter expert. And so when people come to your website and they read your blog, hopefully the content is really reflecting your expertise and knowledge within that scientific specialty. So in terms of an ideal blog post, in terms of a word count, it really varies. I've seen surveys that say readers like blogs that are between 500 and 1,000 words. I've seen blogs that say really great content is between 1,500 and 2,500 words. It really depends on your audience and what your marketing goals are. But for this presentation, I thought just settling on a 1,500 to 2,000 word count was fair given our audience. Secondly, each blog post should be keyword focused. And what I mean by that is don't try to tackle every piece of your organization or every subject matter with one post. Really drill in and do some research into what's a trending yet unique keyword that I could form content around. You want your blog to be organized and structured, not only for your readers' benefit, but so that Google can crawl your page easily and index it without having to go through too much trouble. You want to link to other resources, and you also want to have a comments and discussion area where both members and leads can interact with your website and with your brand.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in here, Taylor. The comment section is a great place to get ideas for future blog posts, and it can also give you a really good idea of how your audience felt about the post that you already have done. I know that my favorite blogs have a really lively discussion area, and it's really exciting when you comment and other readers comment on, you know, we'd really like to see a post about X, Y, and Z, and the blog actually takes that into consideration, and you do see posts that are structured around that type of content that makes you kind of feel more a part of the community, I would say.
That's a great point. So let's look at a couple of examples of blogs that do a really good job of capturing that lead. And the first one that comes to mind is the Scholarly Kitchen. And hopefully everyone that's listening is at least relatively familiar with the Scholarly Kitchen. It's the official blog of SSP. And they recently redesigned their website about a year ago. And what I really like about their homepage is that they have a huge, just blaring red follow us button at the top of their page. And so it's really easy for someone to land on this page and see, okay, I like this blog, I would like to follow it. Similarly, if you actually click on an article and start scrolling down, there's another button that says follow the Scholarly Kitchen. Again, the more attractiveness to your landing page or your lead generation page that you can have, the higher your effectiveness is to driving leads and increasing blog visibility. So whether that's having multiple buttons on the side, whether that's having actual text in the middle of your blog, whatever that strategy is, I think you can't go wrong with having more than less. And finally, here's just a look at their landing page for their lead generation form. And as you can see, it's very simple. It just asks for a first name, a last name, an email, and a country. And really our recommendation would be to model something like this for your blog. Make it easy for people to sign up. Don't ask for too much demographic information right off the bat, because you really want to get them in that kind of top area of that lead funnel and then push them down the funnel with other content. So once they're in your marketing database or your CRM, what do? Well, our first recommendation would be to really utilize email marketing. And that can come in another shapes, forms, or fashions. That could be new content alerts, it could be an email digest, it could be top articles, or it could be a society newsletter. So again, let's look at some examples of some good best practices in email marketing. So here we have again the Society for Scholarly Publishing, Scholarly Kitchen News, blog. And every morning an email such as this ends up in my inbox, and they have their nice branding at the top. They have the article of the day with a featured image and a date and who the author was. And so it's really easy for me just to click through to their blog through this email. A second example is an email digest from ASAE and their publication associations now. And what they do is that they actually publish so much content that they have a daily digest of new articles or blogs on their website. And so they have information about technology and information about trends and information about research studies. But again, it's all content that they've written and published themselves. And so again, I know what you're thinking, my organization can't possibly put out a daily digest of new and fresh content, and that's okay. What I'd recommend is getting a timeline set that is realistic for your organization. So that could be a monthly digest, it could be a quarterly digest, maybe it's weekly. Whatever that is, look at your editorial calendar and see what makes sense and is realistic for your organization.
Yeah, I definitely love communications that are sent out on a regular basis. I think that members of societies appreciate that. It keeps them in touch with the society when they're not at the annual meeting, or if they haven't had a regional meeting, whatever it may be. I think this is just a good way to keep their finger on the pulse of the actual society. That being said, putting these together can be a lot of work. Just gathering enough content and making sure it's quality content, that takes quite a bit of time. But not only that, putting it into, a quote-unquote pretty email template, this would be a good opportunity to utilize a designer or somebody who has expertise in designing emails, just so that, your society members don't think it's spam.
So moving on to our next example, we kind of step out of the association industry a little bit into a company called Moz SEO, which specializes in digital marketing and search engine optimization. And what they do is every week they send out a top articles email that has content not only from their website and blog, but from others in the industry. And so it's a great way for me just to get a weekly digest of what's going on in digital marketing, what's going on in SEO, and they're very fair in saying this does not all come from us, this comes from other companies. But as a marketer and as someone who's interested in digital, we thought this would be a great email for you to take a look at. And finally, we have a newsletter example from the American Academy of Implant Dentistry. And they use this for a number of communication strategies. They have some paid advertising at the top, but they also have industry news and product showcases. They have AAID news and announcements. They often promote their annual meetings or upcoming educational programs. And so it's really kind of a multifaceted tool for not only the organization, but the content that they're publishing and curating. So now that we've kind of dipped our feet into content and digital marketing, Caitlin's going to go over sort of an old school approach to meetings, exhibits, and conferences.
Great. Thank you, Taylor. These days, I think most of us, when we think about marketing tactics, we automatically think digital. We think blogs, email marketing, those types of things. But in this webinar, we wanted to cover a couple more traditional non-digital strategies. So to start off, we're going to talk about meeting, exhibits, and conferences as a lead generation tool. As we start to discuss this tactic, a question on your mind might be, does event marketing still work? And that would be a resounding yes. Event marketing was a good place for lead generation before lead generation was cool. So keep that in mind the next time you're discussing with your society whether or not you should be going to a meeting. Why do they still work? Well, first of all, targeting your market is always a good idea. And when you're going to a conference, you're automatically in a targeted event. And you're going to be presented with a new opportunity to reach maybe a unique audience. So, maybe it's a member of your regular audience, but they're not digitally savvy, so you haven't reached them with your newsletters and your digital marketing. Or maybe you're attending a conference that's slightly, adjacent to your normal audience. Either way, you're going to be meeting people that are new. You're going to be getting new eyeballs on your organization, and that's what we want. So you need to stand out against the crowd when you're at these, because there's going to be so much going on at these conferences. There's music going on, there's all these colorful booths, and you really need to stand out from the crowd so that you can make people stop and have that face-to-face lead generation. But how do you create an exhibit that people actually want to stop at? So here are a couple conference exhibit tactics that we're going to go over. Make your exhibit an event. Make it pretty, have it be colorful, make it be organized, make it appealing to their eye so that they stop. But that doesn't mean that you should just sit back with your pretty exhibit and hope that people drop off their business cards. You need to have a strategy in place for interacting with those leads when they come to your booth. You should have a model for how that conversation should go. Not everyone's going to be a lead, but if they are, have a simple and effective lead capturing system in place. Whether that's a sign-up sheet for a prize or drawing that you're doing. And if you are doing a prize or drawing, make sure that you put some thought behind what it is you're having a drawing for. Make it tailored to that specific audience. If you're offering free trials and discounts or coupons, make sure that you encourage them to use them, because that's going to get them to your website. That's going to get them seeing more about your society and seeing why it might be a good fit for them. And if they start to ask questions about some of your products or services, do a demonstration. Continue that conversation. And make sure that you exchange business cards, and ensure that you follow up with the info on that card. And make sure that you're giving them some collateral. Bring materials about your society. It's a great reading tool for them on their plane home or in their hotel room at the end of a long day.
One thing I would like to add is Caitlin's second point about having a strategy in place. And so many times I go to meetings and I see vendors and exhibitors just show up and hope people that come to their booth, and they really haven't put much thought or strategy in place for how they're going to attract and generate leads for this event. And so I think it's really important to just have a one-page plan on how you're going to attract people to your space. What is that system for the conversation? So if they come to the booth and they start talking about X, what's the action item? Where am I trying to drive them? And then also having that effective lead capturing system. And whether that's a scanner, whether that's a spreadsheet, whatever system you have, it's important that you're getting benefit out of these exhibits and not just kind of showing up and hoping for the best.
Very good point. Very good point. So here would be an example of an Allen Press booth at a conference that we went to earlier this year. So just looking at the different pieces, we've got our nice backdrop that offers some color and gives an idea of what our logo looks like, and it has some of our publications. You can also see that we've got some collateral on top of our table. We have an advertisement for a drawing that we're doing. We have a couple journals propped up, just showing some of the work that we do. And then we also have our nice tablecloth. It has our branding on it, which reiterates the branding on the backdrop that we brought. And obviously we have our host standing behind the table. Mark is looking welcoming. These are all things that were thought about. These are things that we put in place so that when people stopped, we'd have a conversation to start with. Take a look at one of our folio sheets that we have here and see if we can help you. And another thing to keep in mind here is this is an attractive booth, but all of the pieces are relatively inexpensive. You invest in your backdrop and your tablecloth, and you can use those for years to come depending on your branding. So keep in mind that, if you're investing in going to this conference in the first place, make sure that you have the pieces that are going to make you attractive to visitors.
And one thing I'd add is you see some of the marketing collateral that we brought to meetings, and a lot of those are about our products and services. But for your association, you might want to have things more geared toward prospective members. So maybe that's a testimonial from other individuals in your organization, or a case study, or just a brochure or small flyer that has your member benefits and why someone should be a part of your organization and what they're going to get out of it. But really thinking in terms of that prospect, what's going to kind of move them down that funnel? What pieces are going to create a lead and hopefully create an opportunity for membership down the road?
Yeah, as Taylor mentioned the funnel again, it's just important to always keep that strategy in place. You're not going to the conference just to go to the conference. There's always going to be a strategy in place there. And here would be another aspect of your strategy. So we've got our spreadsheet, and it's just a simple conference lead generation report here. But this spreadsheet has on it, the name, company, contact information, notes about a discussion with a potential lead, and then an action item to actually follow up with that lead. So let's go through, excuse me, let's go through some of the columns that we have here. So first up, we've got Amy Smith, company A. Great, we've got some details about her already. Then we have her contact information. We can go ahead and put her email address onto our newsletter list if we discuss that. Notes about our conversation. Very interested in travel awards and grants. Well, that's awesome to know. We can now send her some information about our next upcoming conference and whether or not we have some awards and grants to advertise to her. So that is like a very clear action item follow-up you can do with Amy, and that's just from a conversation that you had with her at her booth, but now you might have a new person that's coming to your conference next year. And moving on to the second person, we've got Bob King, got his contact information, and it looks like we discussed journal and open access policy. Well, that's great. We can go ahead and forward that information to our editor or publisher, and they can follow up with Bob and maybe talk about a paper that he's thinking about submitting, and what our open access policy as a journal might be.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a very simple spreadsheet, obviously, and everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. But we're hoping that this just captures, again, that strategy behind going to a meeting. That don't just take a business card, scribble on the back, and throw it in your suitcase, but have a system for gathering leads, making notes, and having action items so that when you get back in the office, you can drive that lead further down your lead generation funnel.
And, you're at the conference and you are meeting all of these people, but if you're at the right conference and talking to the right people, this is going to be exciting. You're talking to people that are potential new members to your society. You might form a professional relationship. This might be a great networking opportunity, but this person may also have something great to offer to the society. So keep in mind that you're making a personal connection as much as you are a connection for your society. So we're going to move on to the second kind of traditional tactic that we want to talk about today, and that would be direct mail. So thinking about direct mail, most of us are probably, email is kind of what we use these days, or we use our newsletters online. That's what we do. But direct mail can be a very good tool to use if it's done properly. But why would you use direct mail? Well, first of all, it provides a lasting impression. When we touch something, it shifts our brain into a deeper level of engagement. So if you've got a cool postcard that has some texture to it, that's going to automatically make somebody stop and take notice. Second, personalized pieces draw extra attention. So if you've got a cool postcard and it has my name on it, You've automatically got my attention. It's obviously to me. It doesn't say, "Dear resident," or "to who it may concern." It says, "Hey, Caitlin Ziegler, pay attention to this." And then targeted information converts leads. So if you know more about your lead than just their name and address, maybe you know from your conversation that they're interested in conference information, you can use that in your direct mail and make that a more tailored piece to that person. That will make it easier for them to follow up and give them an incentive to follow up. And then it takes more than just one marketing channel to really reach somebody, to really resonate. You know, I kind of look at it as you want to get into their inbox with your emails, you want to get into your mailbox with direct mail, and maybe that'll get them into your society if you're doing everything right.
And just to highlight that point again, it really does take more than one marketing channel to have an effective campaign. So even if you're just doing email or you're just doing content marketing, it's really good to think about some of these other channels like print advertising or direct mail, because studies have shown that utilizing more than one channel can increase marketing effectiveness and overall ROI.
Definitely. Finally, higher conversion rate for some demographics. So maybe you've got a lot of millennials in your society, and they're always on their smartphones, on their computers. Guilty. I think we're both guilty here. But maybe you've got some older members that appreciate getting that letter in the mail. Maybe that's something that's going to resonate better with them and help them remember that you do have, a special on your open access policy, or that you do have a conference coming up. All things to keep in mind. So moving on, some tactics to keep in mind when looking at direct mail. We're going to break this up into the basics and actually lead generation. So starting off with the basics, purchase a list. Now this can be expensive, and it is an inorganic way to get somebody's information, but it can also be a great shortcut to utilize if you don't have readily available information about your audience. And when you do this, make sure that, like we said, personalize each piece. There are so many things that you can do to personalize a piece of mail. We can make variable creative data look cool and show up in the actual artwork. And I'm going to show you an example of that later. Print production has come a long way, and doing creative things like this are not always cost prohibitive anymore, and they can be very, very effective. Third, be intentional about what you're sending to your audience. These people, if you did purchase a list, they didn't ask to receive this piece of mail. So if you're going to end up in their mailbox, make sure that it's worth it to them to show up in their mailbox. And then stand out. Mail needs to cut through the clutter to be effective and to be worth the cost. You've already got the fact that you're not a credit card statement working in your favor, so just build on top of that. Make your postcard a cool shape, add some texture. And then if you're doing direct mail, just once again, make it worth it to them. So moving on to the lead generation portion of this tactic. Maybe you're giving them a special offer. This gets them to your website by a personalized landing page. Maybe you're offering a coupon on a journal or a magazine subscription. Once again, getting them to your website, getting them to use content. And then also you could offer a free membership trial. That gets them in the door already, and then maybe, when renewals are coming on next year, it gets them to renew. So moving on to look at this nice graphic, thanks to Mindfire Studios, kind of shows you the mail piece journey with the customer. Kind of covered it, but you're attracting your customer's eyes by generating and printing a personalized URL on a direct mail piece. This direct mail piece is going to get them to that landing page from their personalized URL, and they're going to interact with your website and interact with that landing page. And then finally, react to those people that are getting to that landing page. That generates your leads if you're getting their information, and then print out some reports and follow up depending on what their activity on that page looked like. You just need to make sure that you're consistently following up according to what your sales marketing funnel is showing you. All right, so let's take a look at this nice little direct mail piece we have here. So this would be a great example of personalized artwork. So you can see there that we've got the name Kim coming out of the steam of this latte beverage, and then we've also got the last name in the foam there. So already this is pretty cool. I'm kind of a direct mail geek. I love writing letters, receiving letters, but this is a piece that would definitely make me stop. And I'm not going to lie, this is probably going up on my fridge later. I just think it is so cool. So let's move on to the right side of this mail piece. Already personalized again, saying Kim, wake up and smell the aroma of savings and incentives in your exclusive Holiday Builders website. And then right there in that red banner, we've got her personalized URL. So Kim goes to this URL and it's going to be customized for her needs. Whatever conversation we had with Kim, we're going to make that reflective on this website for her. Moving down, be one of the first 25 to log on and receive a $25 Visa gift card. Well, that sounds pretty great. She just has to go to this URL and then she's already entered to receive a gift card. You know, what if that said something about getting a $25 off your membership or $25 off your conference registration, whatever that might be, tailor it to what's going to be an incentive to your potential society member. And be entered to win an exotic Costa Rican dream vacation now through March 31st. And then it's got some nice branding there. Well, I'm just going to say if all I have to do is go to this website and click on a couple things, I want to be entered into this dream vacation. And obviously that's probably not doable for a lot of societies, but just reiterating the incentive to go to, you know, this website and give your information. I'd keep this piece, I'm just saying.
We're now going to move into sort of the core of lead generation, and that is trials, discounts, and long-form content. So as I mentioned, these are all core tactics that you can use to drive leads for your association or society. And I put a little tool graphic there on the side because I really do feel like these tactics are your marketing toolkit, and that depending on your goals and your audience can really help you grow your society or association. Some of these are a little bit more lower funnel marketing content, meaning that you've gotten past the blog and you've gotten past the email marketing and the newsletters, and you're now providing something of value and trading that value for lead generation contact. So the first tactic I want to talk about are free trials. And free trials are something I don't think associations and societies use frequently enough. So it could be a free membership to new members, and that could be a year, that could be 30 days, it could be 6 months. Really that timing is arbitrary. What you should think about is, are my membership benefits set up so that someone can get full value and really taste that trial within that time period? So if you feel like the individual could probably get a good taste of your association or society within 3 months, then maybe your trial should be 3 months. If you really think that person needs to be ingrained in the organization for a year, then maybe that free trial is a year. Our second bullet there is a free journal trial. And almost every journal seems to be doing this these days. There's either a section on the website or a pop-up that comes up upon hitting that web page. But it's just a really easy way to, again, trading value for that lead generation information and push those prospective members down your sales and marketing funnel. And finally, you could offer a free trial to a product or service, whether that be an educational program, whether that be a book, whatever your organization is offering. It's probably pretty easy to set up a discount or a free service trial within your website or digital platform. Secondly, discounts. So when talking to clients here at Allen Press, we always talk about lead generation tactics and strategies. What always comes up is the annual meeting. And what we find is that a lot of associations think that their annual meeting is not only the place where members need to be, but also where prospective members need to be. And that's because that's where the most interaction, that's where the most value comes out of that membership. And so we think that using the annual meeting as a lead generation tool is a pretty good idea. And so the easiest thing to do is just offer a discount. Maybe you cover their airfare, or maybe you cover their hotel room, or maybe it's just a flat percentage off their registration. Whatever it is, the goal is to get them to that meeting, interact with the members, and hopefully become a member themselves and stay for a long time. You could also apply discounts to journal page charges or author processing charges. You could provide discounts to educational programs, whether it be an online class, a webinar, an in-person seminar, and again, other products or services that apply to your association or society. Probably my favorite part about lead generation is long-form content. And before I get started on some of the bullets, let's just make a distinction what long-form content is. It's really content that takes a lot more investment from you as a marketer or a publisher, and also takes more investment from the reader or the user in terms of digesting that content and its usability. And so this content is usually behind a lead generation wall, whether that's a form or whether that's trading that contact information for that piece of content. But it's going to be much more valuable than just a blog post or an email, and that's why there's that lead generation form behind there. So the first type of long-form content are white papers, original data and research, and ebooks. And obviously these are going to take a lot of hours to put into. It could be a 20 or 30-page document. It could be a research study that maybe is not fit for the journal, but is a good marketing tool for recruiting members. Whatever it is, you put that on your website, you put it behind a form, and you're collecting those leads and then hopefully pushing them down that sales and marketing funnel as the process goes along. And so one tactic for your sales team or one of your new business committees is that once someone downloads this piece of content, that's sort of a good indicator that, okay, hey, they're really interested in our association, that they're using our resources and our tools and our long-form content. So probably at this point, at least merits a follow-up, whether that's just an email or a phone call or maybe just connecting with them on LinkedIn. Whatever that is, it's just to let them know that, hey, we see that you're interested in our organization, and if we could provide any support or answer any questions, we're here to do that. Some other examples of long-form content includes templates, cheat sheets, and checklists. So this really involves getting inside this prospect or this visitor's head and understanding your audience enough to know what are they going to find valuable. What checklist or cheat sheet or Excel template are they going to find valuable enough to trade their contact information for that document. Another great tactic is SlideShare presentations. So I know both members and executives of associations travel quite a lot, and they're either speaking or they're giving seminars, and simply using that SlideShare deck as a lead generation tactic is a really easy thing to do. You put it up on your website, you put it behind one of your forms, and all of a sudden you're creating leads through that presentation. And finally, probably my favorite piece of long-form content are podcasts. And as I mentioned in my intro, I listen to a lot of podcasts because I have about a 45-minute commute to work every day, and that ranges from business and marketing to sports and politics and everywhere in between. But why I like podcasts for associations is because it's sort of a green space. These other tactics we've talked about are certainly not new. People have been doing email, people have been blogging, people have been doing white papers for quite a long time. But podcast is sort of this new opportunity where there's not a lot of competition. And so if you're in an association or an industry that's quite competitive, it might be a good spot for you to stand out and still create leads through that tactic.
So just to end our webinar on a not redundant note, but a fun note, I think, it might be obvious, but webinars are a great lead generation tactic. So just stick with me here. So why would you host a webinar? Well, webinars can support many objectives. First, they can help generate interest in your society. You might think that your organization is the greatest, but you're the best salesperson your society can get. You talking with passion about your society is a recruitment strategy in and of itself, which another way, a webinar can be a recruitment tool. And you can also indicate the society is an influencer in the field which is exactly what a researcher would want to see. The webinar can also give further insight into your society's area of interest, and it educates your audience more than just a simple visit to your website. How do you produce a webinar? First, you need to survey your members on what they might want to see. This is a really good idea if you want to get a pulse on what your members are really interested in and what is really, the hot topic among them. If you're not getting a great response rate, then maybe use a keywords research tool like Moz. This can be a good way to see, what is being discussed in your field. Next, select your topic and make sure you do a few, web searches to see if it might be overdone. If there's been 12 webinars about 2018 trends in your field, that might not be a good option for you. Select something that might be a little bit different. Next, find a reliable platform, one that's going to let you analyze metrics, collect leads, and is just plain easy to use. If I am going to have to watch a 30-minute webinar to understand my webinar platform, it's probably not for me. Then engage with your audience. Encourage their questions and make sure that you follow around at the end and answer them. If you're not going to have time to answer their questions, shoot them an email. And if it is a really good question, maybe shoot the entire audience an email. This just gives it a personal feel for those members to know that they were heard, and maybe they're going to tune into your next webinar because of that. Next, make sure that you recruit great speakers. Make sure you're getting somebody who is a subject matter expert on this topic so that they can talk at length and answer questions on the fly. If you've got somebody who is kind of a mumbler or isn't good at kind of speaking up, make sure that you rehearse and maybe pair them with somebody that is a little bit more, outspoken or louder, and it kind of balances each other out. But definitely make sure that your speakers are prepared. Next, promote your webinar. Now, we've all heard the expression, if a tree falls in the forest but nobody hears it, did it happen? Well, if you host a webinar and nobody knows about it, did it happen? Well, it might have happened, but you probably didn't generate the leads that you wanted to. You probably didn't get the results that you desired. So to reiterate a point we made prior, make sure that you're using different channels to talk about your webinar. Use at least 3. You can use your emails, promote it a couple times, and make sure that when you do that, you're targeting relevant leads and follow an active strategy. You don't want to just be emailing random people in your CRM. Next, make sure you put something on your website. If you go to the Allen Press website right now, you can see that we're having a webinar today and it's clearly communicated. Next, use your social media channels, promote it there. And then finally, make sure that your speakers promote it. Word of mouth is great. Maybe they need to just forward that webinar link around to their colleagues. Either way, make sure that people hear about your webinar. So some tactics to make sure that you have a successful webinar. Beforehand, accomplish a few things. You'll have already selected a platform, but make sure that there is a simple registration process. Make sure that when people go to that landing page, it's not them jumping through 2 hoops in the dark. Make sure that it's easy for them to go ahead and sign up. And then capture the registration leads and their info so that you can follow up and send them a reminder email. Or if you can, create automated thank you and reminder emails. This is something that you can kind of set and forget as you prepare for your webinar. So here's a great example of a webinar landing page. On the left side, we've got the registration list, which is great. Maybe the only thing I would change is requiring less information. All of those fields look like they're required. Really, all I need is your name and your email. It would be great to get a few extra details, but maybe don't make those required boxes that they have to fill in. And then let's look at the right side. We can clearly see the name of the webinar, Starting Lean, how to find out if your business idea has potential in days and not years. This is an easy you can see the topic right there. And then we've got information about the webinar that makes it very straightforward. There it is. And then we've also got pictures of the speakers. That kind of gives you an idea of who you're going to be listening to, and maybe you can check out their LinkedIn pages and see what their experience is. So after the webinar, make sure that you review your metrics. How long did your audience watch? Did they drop off? When did they drop off? You know, if they kind of go after 10 minutes, maybe you've got a slow intro, and next time you need to work on making it more engaging from the get-go. Maybe you lost engagement about halfway through. Did your sound go out? These are all things that you want to make sure that you look at post-webinar so that you don't run into those same snags next time. Who attended your webinar? What percent of the registrants actually came? Did you get about half? Did you get a quarter? Did you make sure that you sent those reminder emails? You know, and check out their email addresses. Did you recognize any of the contact information that you had? You know, if you're not reaching new registrants, it's great that you've got participants from your society, but maybe rethink how you promoted your webinar. And then send a personal note afterwards. Make sure that people know that you appreciate that they came. And then survey your attendees. Ask some simple questions that kind of get them to tell you whether your content was good, whether the sound was good. You know, knowing if your technical aspect is good is just as important as the content sometimes. And then here's an example of a great webinar follow-up email. Message is clear there at the top, and then it also mentions the name of your webinar in case that they attended a couple other ones that week. And then it gives you some buttons. You can go watch this recording or download the presentation. You could also forward this email to other members of your team if you think it had value, and then that gives them the opportunity to also watch it. And then down at the bottom, we've got that contact portion, questions, and then it gives you easy contact information if you need to shoot them an email. And then finally, the webinar survey. So as I mentioned, just a few easy questions. How would you rate the quality of the webinar? Was it relevant to your job? Just asking questions that they just have to click a radio button is a great way to get some good feedback. But also give them the opportunity to leave a comment, because that can also be helpful if you are thinking of doing another webinar. Maybe they have comments or ideas for what you could do next.
So that rounds out our tactics for lead generation success. A couple slides I want to go over before we start taking questions. And first, that's just looking at our sales and marketing funnel again. And I know this can kind of seem a bit complex, but I want everyone to understand that marketing is a system, and that you don't just generate new members randomly, but that if you have a process in place, that there can be an easy system for generating prospects, generating leads, and then moving them through that sales and marketing funnel. So just as a kind of a quick case study, let's take our prospective member, Bill Nye. And Bill Nye has become familiar with your organization. You know, he's seen you at the meeting, he's visited your website, but you don't know who he is until he looks at a blog post that he really enjoys and thinks is beneficial, and he decides, I'm going to sign up for that blog post. And so he starts getting your daily notifications and your newsletters and maybe your digests, and he moves into that lead category. But that isn't it. So then he's on your website and he sees a piece of long-form content. Maybe it's a white paper, or maybe it's an ebook, and he decides, I'm gonna give you my contact information again because I really want that piece of content because it's so valuable. And that part, he moves further down that funnel into that marketing qualified lead section, and that's when your kind of sales or new business committee can kind of look at him and say, okay, Bill seems like a good prospect for our organization. And maybe Bill downloads another template or a case study, or he registers for your podcast. And at that point, you know that Bill needs to be a member. And so someone from your committee emails Bill or gives him a call and gives him more information about becoming a member and the benefits of becoming a member. And then, of course, Bill continues to move through that funnel all the way through the opportunity and hopefully becomes a member. But it doesn't stop at that. What you really need to do is, once Bill actually becomes a member, is delight Bill. Assign him to a committee, give him a mentor, really make him feel like a valued member of the organization, so that when your renewal notices go out next year, Bill doesn't have to think whether I'm going to renew or not. It's a no-brainer that he values the organization, he values the interactions, he values the content, and that he's a member for life. So again, as you're going through your sales and marketing funnel, think attract, convert, close, and delight.
And just to follow up there, Taylor, you know, those are all great steps, and definitely utilize this example. But also remember that you want to be delighting Bill from the beginning of his visit. You know, the first time he comes to your website, make sure your website is a nice visual for Bill. Make sure that the content that he finds there is nice and quality for him. You know, so really you're trying to delight him throughout this whole process. You know, make sure that it's not just once he's in the society, even though that is definitely something to keep in mind.
And I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention a few technology platforms for inbound and lead generation. So I guess the caveat here is there's a lot. There's a lot of different platforms you can choose from. A lot of them are already integrated within your marketing database or your CRM. The three that I have listed at the top, High Road Solutions, Informs, and Real Magnet, they provide services for associations and societies. Not specifically, but that's certainly a vertical that they've chosen to go after. So they're more familiar with sort of the ins and outs of the nonprofit world. The others listed, HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, those are all really big companies. They have great resources and a reliable technology. We don't work with any one specifically here at Allen Press, so we're not going to recommend one today. But if you're thinking, okay, well, where do I go to learn more about inbound marketing and lead generation, these are some good sites to take a look at. So that appears to be the end of our presentation today, and we do have a few minutes for questions, so let's take a look here. Looks like our first question is, are there any lead generation strategies that are more effective than others?
I can kind of start that conversation. I would say that there are going to be some tactics that work better for some societies than others. But overall, I think that's trying to rank something that's kind of unrankable. You know, if you're a society that, you know, maybe one of your strengths is your leadership has some good speakers, then maybe doing a webinar is a great way to utilize those talents. Maybe you have some people that love to write and they write good quality content and can produce blog posts on a regular basis. I think that would be an awesome way to utilize that talent. A lot of the time when you're working with a small organization that doesn't necessarily have a marketing department, you work with what you've got, and when you have people that have certain talents, definitely try and utilize those.
Yep, I would agree. It's going to depend on your organization and your goals, and really your expertise as well. If you're more comfortable producing a podcast or a webinar, that might be a better tactic than spending hours writing an ebook or some piece of long-form content. The next question we have is, how does social media fit into lead generation? Go ahead.
Oh, so we didn't actually talk about social media as a tactic today, but it's something that we use as a company. Obviously, you gotta these days, I suppose, but it's not really a way to generate leads as much as it is a way to get people to visit your website, to get people to see, you know, what you're doing. It gets them to see what you're doing, if that makes any sense. So it can definitely be a good way to get people to your website or to a blog post, but it isn't necessarily a way that you're going to get their contact information.
Right. So if you think of the sales and marketing funnel, again, I'm sure we're beating a dead horse here now with the funnel, but social media really brings people to the top of that funnel. So you're blogging, you're putting out content, and social media is a great way to share that content and just acts as a marketing vehicle for bringing people to your organization. But as Caitlin said, it's not going to produce leads by itself. You have to have other tactics in place that are capturing that information and following up with prospective members. Looks like we have one more question, and it has to do with sales part. So how does the bottom end of the marketing and sales funnel apply to associations? And I can take that one again. And I think, like I said, not every association or society is going to have somebody doing sales or someone doing business development or member development. So I would utilize your committees, either if you have a membership committee, assigning a sales task to them in terms of following up with leads and people that have been qualified as a good prospect for your organization. If it's not a membership committee, maybe you start a business committee or a sales committee. You can name it whatever you want, but the process is the same, is that once someone has been deemed a marketing and sales qualified lead, that somebody is connecting with them and providing more information about the society and pushing them through that funnel so that hopefully they become a member down the road.
Yeah, and just to reiterate my point earlier, make sure that you're trying to delight your leads as they're moving through that funnel. You know, if everything's in place and you have a quality blog or you have a quality podcast that you're putting out and the members or the potential members are seeing that content, it's just going to help your case. And when you're following up with those leads or you have somebody assigned to further delight that potential member, then that's just going to have a good ending for you.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to thank Caitlin and all of you for joining us today. Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion surrounding marketing strategies for associations and societies. And hopefully you learned a thing or two about lead generation and setting up your marketing strategy as a process rather than as just as a plan. Allen Press is proud to provide marketing services and support to societies, associations, and organizations of all kind. So if you would like help developing or enhancing your marketing program, please give us a call. We would love to help you grow. We'd like to help you succeed and move you closer to your strategic goals as an organization. Just one last housekeeping note. At the conclusion of this webinar, we will be sending out a brief survey that will ask you to rate the presentation, the quality of content, and the overall value. Your input is extremely helpful, so please take a few moments and complete our questionnaire. In this email, you'll also find a recording of today's webinar. We encourage you to download a copy for your records, share it with friends or colleagues, and we'll also have the webinar up on our website and YouTube channels within the coming weeks. And finally, if you have any additional questions for either Caitlin or I, our emails are at the bottom of this slide. Please feel free to contact us, and we'd love just to talk marketing with you at any time. So that includes our session for today. Thanks again for attending, and we'll talk to you next time.